There's this thing that happens the moment an artist dies. Suddenly everyone knows them. Suddenly everyone loved them. The retrospectives come out. The think pieces run. People who never once mentioned this person's name are posting tributes, pulling quotes, buying their books in droves. And I want to sit with the cruelty of that for a second, because I think it tells us something we're not fully ready to look at. Not about the culture, not just about capitalism or the algorithm, though those play a role, about something in us. Let's start with what we can actually observe. Van Gogh sold one painting while he was alive. One. He was deeply mentally ill, financially dependent on his brother, largely dismissed by the art world of his time. He died at 37. Today, his paintings sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. There are Van Gogh immersive experiences in every major city. People wear his art on their tote bags. Kafka asked his closest friend Max Brod to burn everything he ever wrote after his death. Max didn't. And now Kafka is one of the most cited writers in the literary canon. His name became an adjective, Kafkaesque. The man lived most of his writing life in obscurity, doubted himself constantly, worked a day job, never asked for a legacy. We built him one, over his dead body. Emily Dickinson. Almost nothing published in her lifetime. Almost 1,800 poems found in a box after she died. A box. And we don't treat this like the tragedy it is. We treat it like a romantic origin story. So what's happening here? Why do we do this? The first reason is the most uncomfortable one, and I want to name it plainly. A dead artist is safe. They cannot challenge you. They cannot release something disappointing. They cannot say something politically inconvenient or update their perspective in a way that complicates the version you've decided they are. A dead artist is frozen. You can curate them. You can project onto them. You can make them mean whatever you need them to mean. A living artist is dangerous by comparison. They're still in process. They're still becoming. They might contradict themselves. They might grow in directions you didn't sign up for. They might ask you to hold complexity, their humanity, their failure, their evolution. And most of us aren't actually asking for that from art. We want a fixed object. We want to consume, not contend with. When an artist is alive, engagement with their work asks something of you. It asks you to stay present with an ongoing relationship. Death collapses all of that into a single, manageable mythology. The second reason is about scarcity, and this one lives at the intersection of psychology and economics. When an artist dies, the supply of their original work is permanently capped. There will never be another Van Gogh painting. There will never be another Basquiat. The scarcity is now absolute, and humans are profoundly irrational about scarcity. We want things more when we know we can't have more of them. What was once available, what was perhaps even dismissed as too available, becomes precious precisely because that availability is gone. During their lifetimes, these artists were creating. They were still generating. The work kept coming, and so it didn't feel rare. It felt like this person making their things in their time. Just another artist. And just another artist is not what the market celebrates. The market celebrates monuments. And you can't make a monument out of something still moving. But here's what I really want you to think about, because this is where I think it gets more personal, more interior. We have a profound discomfort with witnessing someone struggle in real time. When an artist is alive and unknown, we have to decide in the present tense whether they're worth our time. And that decision carries risk. What if we're wrong? What if we invest our attention, our money, our public recommendation, and it doesn't pan out? What if other people don't agree? Social risk, reputational risk, the risk of being the person who cared about something before it was validated. History removes that risk entirely. When we celebrate a dead artist, the consensus has already been reached. Critics, historians, institutions, they've done the interpretive labor. They've handed us a verdict, and we can then participate in that verdict safely. We're not taking a risk. We're joining a legacy. But a living artist who's still underground, still climbing, still asking for your faith before the world has confirmed they deserve it, that's a different ask. And most people, if they're honest, don't want to answer it. There's also something I think we need to name about the way we're conditioned to receive art. We're not taught to trust our own taste. We're taught to look for signals, bestseller lists, awards, museum walls, syllabi, verified credibility. We're taught subtly and persistently that we need an institution to tell us what matters before we allow ourselves to believe it matters. And living artists, especially early ones, often lack all of that. They're offering you the work without the institutional blessing. They're saying, just you and this right now? What do you think? Most of us have been trained out of answering that question on our own. We've learned to wait for permission to care. And the tragedy, the actual structural tragedy, is that this means the very people who most need support get the least of it. The artist who is dead and famous does not need your purchase, your share, your word of mouth. The artist who is alive and trying and brilliant and overlooked, they need exactly that. And they're the ones we scroll past. There's a grief loop here that I think goes unexamined. When a beloved artist dies, especially one who was celebrated in their lifetime, we feel a real loss. That grief opens us up. It softens the usual guardedness we bring to encountering art. And in that softened state, we engage more deeply, we go back to the work, we sit with it, we let it move us. But grief also sometimes is a performance. It's a way of declaring our taste publicly, in a moment when that declaration is socially rewarded. The tribute post, the "I grew up with this," the "this changed my life." There's genuine feeling in some of it, yes. And there's also something in us that knows the cultural moment and rises to meet it. What I find myself asking is, why does it take death to open that up? Why is loss the only permission we give ourselves to publicly say that something moved us? Because there are artists alive right now, in your orbit, maybe even in your own community, making work that will outlast them, work that will be studied, work that will be called essential, eventually by people who weren't paying attention when it was made. And most of them are struggling. Most of them are working other jobs. Most of them are creating in the margins of lives that don't fully accommodate what they're doing. Most of them will die before the consensus catches up. I think the question this puts to us isn't, why does the culture do this? The question is, what are you doing right now while the artists who matter are still alive? Are you buying the book before it makes a list? Are you sharing the work before it has 100,000 followers? Are you paying for the art, the music, the writing, the thing that costs the creator something real to make without waiting for the world to tell you it's worth it? Because here's what I know. Your attention, given early, given freely, given without needing the consensus to validate it first, that is the thing that actually sustains a body of work. That is the thing that lets someone keep going. The museum retrospective comes too late. The posthumous recognition comes too late. The "I always believed in them" tweet comes always too late. Van Gogh wrote to his brother Theo in one of the last letters he ever sent, "Through my work, I want to show what such an eccentric, such a nobody has in his heart." He didn't know then whether anyone would ever see that. You know someone like that right now? You probably encountered their work. You probably scrolled past it. The question is whether you can love something before the world has given you permission to. That's the only question really, and what you do with it is entirely up to you.